Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper, and today we have one of my favorite lawmakers in the room getting behind us. The city council elections are behind us. We can concentrate now on what's going to happen in January in Annapolis. It's a little early. We have Delegate Chris Adams. Welcome, Chris.
Greg, good to be here today.
Now, unfortunately, you're the last of the local delegation to be interviewed on 101, so I apologize that you're the last one.
Thanks for having me.
But you're in the news right now because you're talking about this sprinkler legislation and what's going to happen with that. So explain this issue to me and explain why the builders and developers are upset about it.
Well, to not get into the issue with the sprinklers up front, what I'll tell you is that the counties throughout the state, and specifically in my district, Wicomico, Dorchester, Caroline County, asked for and received the opt-out privilege in 2012. So when the state adopted the International Residential Code, the building code, if you will, you know, they usually, the counties have full discretion as to add to the code, take away from the code, make it stronger, create enforcement mechanisms. So it's unusual because the state in 2012 mandated the sprinkler systems.
This is a new construction.
New construction,
residential,
single family. So
right.
Multifamily apartments, that's off the table. You know, you need
right.
sprinklers for that. But
that was already part of the law.
That's right. So in 2012, long before I was running for office, there was a tremendous debate over the cost of these systems, the maintenance of the systems, what happens when they fail. And so what the state decided to do was compromise. Said, okay, well, we're going to give the counties the chance to make that decision for themselves, but we're going to twilight that provision. And
right.
that provision twilighted this past summer. You know, and what happens now? I start as a delegate hearing from builders, hearing from realtors, hearing from my constituents, and the county councils who have said in their legislative packages in Dorchester and in Caroline County they want that opt-out, you know, back. So I'm responsive to that need. The reason why I acted, and I think you'll be interested in, you know, what's causing me to do this now and not in mid-January, is I sat through my freshman year in Annapolis watching this debate happen, because this, you know, counties wanted this last year and they never got the hearing. You know, the hearing never happened. And what I experienced there was, number one, there's a very strong lobby that deals with the sprinklers, and it's an honorable lobby.
Right.
They feel strongly about the safety perspective, if you will. However, there's also strong, you know, local interest that frankly wasn't being heard in Annapolis. It felt like it was coming from afar. So if you
right.
and I are, if I'm in Annapolis and I'm hearing from Wicomico County, just there was no connection, no grassroots movement to make the change. We saw one delegate Grist up in District 36, who ended up putting the bill in, and his observation was he kind of felt like he was on an island.
Right.
Okay, I'm putting it in, you know, I've put the flag in the ground, and I'm not seeing where people are coming around to really support from a delegate standpoint, other delegates in the state.
Right.
So,
now there was a rush. Developers were rushing to get building permits filed before this twilighted out, before it became mandatory.
So once session ended and they realized that there was going to be no legislative fix to this,
right.
the date was July 1st for these counties. Your realtors, builders knew this date very well. So if you're a builder that's moving and you can anticipate your volume for the next 12 months, what they were doing is buying permits leading up to that July 1st date.
Right.
And that's kind of government in action, right?
Right.
You know, they create these
right.
These situations, and businesses vote with their pocketbook, and they're smart.
Right.
You know, smart people. So.
And then your colleague, Delegate Carl Anderton, told the county council last week, he said that there's no way you all are going to be able to change the minds of everyone in Annapolis, but you can make the argument for local control, have it be a local decision.
And that's why I'm not debating the sprinkler. So that, you know, I would say to you this: if I build another house, I'll make the decision, and would like to be able to make the decision based on the economics, the safety, and that becomes a personal decision that I don't need Annapolis to make that decision for me. Just know that the the debate, as I have kind of laid this out, is to get it on the table. And people in the county, the builders, the county councils, need to know with some confidence that this bill is going to get a hearing, right? That it's going to be heard in Annapolis, that there will be debate on both sides, so they can now work on the ground to develop support on this. If there's a compromise, we can start talking about that now. The only thing that's unacceptable to me is that there be no debate on it.
Right.
So that's what happened last year, and that won't happen moving forward.
What committee would it go to?
Well, right now, Judiciary is drafting the bill for me, and we're making some amendments. So I'm working with their counsel, and normally that's done in a very confidential way, and I've instructed them now that this is a matter of public record.
Right.
So I'm sure they're getting calls, but the point is that they're very good. So bill drafting is a great process. Helps me draft good legislation, bounce back ideas. I shared with them yesterday what Delaware's done in this regard. So we have states that are surrounding us. In fact, throughout the nation, there is a debate on this specific issue.
Right. What has Delaware done?
Well, Delaware has basically just in August signed a law that makes the builder produce a quote to do the sprinkler system, hand that quote to the buyer before they sign a contract, along with a set of documents that the state fire marshal in Delaware creates selling the benefits of the sprinkler system. The builder looks at the home buyer and says, okay, do you want to spend $12,000 or $15,000 on the system? If the answer is yes, by code, by statute, that builder has to put that system in. So that becomes a consumer choice. I like consumer choice over government mandate.
Yeah, I had an argument with a friend about this, and I think that if I'm at the settlement table and I'm building a house and I've got the builder there, and they always ask you anything that we left out, So at my settlement, well, yeah, I need a back porch and sprinkler system for the yard, and I think I would have gotten a sprinkler system for inside the house because it would add value to my house, and I think my insurance company would like me to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the insurance companies will tell you that there's a balance. You might save $30 a year insurance premiums. There is a risk in the insurance industry for having pressure water lines in your ceilings. So insurance companies will mitigate the risk by their premiums. I think that washes for the insurance companies.
Right.
The thing that motivates me and why the builders and the county councils are very interested in this opt-out is because there is a significant economic development aspect to this. And as a builder myself, affordable housing is what I know, so I can build you a house tomorrow if you'd like. If it's a 1,200 square foot house,
right,
it costs me about $70,000 to build that. That doesn't include land, that doesn't include the septic systems, which can be very expensive.
Right.
Does not include the sprinkler system, which a good contractor locally here quoted me $6,000 for this house. So I'm adding roughly 10% to the cost of my home. And that's assuming that I can get city pressure, which in this case I don't have. So you have to add to that $6,000 a few more $1,000s to do it right, to get the large 300-400 gallon fire tank.
Right.
You have to build a structure outside to place that size tank outside.
Right.
It's not workable. So this is it sounds good in theory.
Right.
But in rural areas, it basically stops development. This was the last straw. This is the one that broke the camel's back from a construction standpoint. Why you're seeing now a drop down in the permitting. I'll just add that if there is a public safety prerogative that we're trying to achieve by putting the sprinkler systems in, if there's no construction, if there's no new home construction, single family, if we're a county, Wicomico, that has thousands upon thousands of homes without sprinkler systems, how are we achieving a social justice here?
Right.
So the argument doesn't match the way we get there. It's just these two don't add up for me.
What can people do to help you get this hearing?
Oh, the hearing's going to happen.
Okay.
So the challenge for me as a legislator is now developing relationships throughout the state. So know that Allegheny and Garrett, Cecil, Harford. I mean, okay. It's going to be many, if not most, rural counties in the state will want this opt-out. You can just go back and look at where the opt-outs were prior to July 1st and know which counties would take advantage of this, and it's most counties in the state. So this has to come from the county level. I mean, the MACO conference is going to be in mid-December, so it's not by mistake that I did this
Right.
about a month ago. It is to lead up to the MACO conference. Hopefully, this will make some type of agenda, reach a debate forum in that setting, which I think is a great place to do it. What they'll be able to do in MACO is say, okay, well, we're not trying to find somebody now who's going to put a bill in. They can say that Delegate Chris Adams has put the bill in. Now let's see whether or not we can form support behind that bill, or it's like Larry Hogan said, the best ideas rise to the top.
Right.
Doesn't matter whether Republican ideas or Democrat ideas, and let's as a state come up to bipartisan solutions. So I'm all for other ideas to come forward.
Has the governor come out on this?
No, and I've not asked for any support from the governor yet. I believe that the track here is too early.
Yeah.
The governor's office, in my experience, has been neutral on most bills. So last year, if you went to the governor's office and said, "Would you support my bill?" It's in there. It has been my history of seeing what things get heard is that
Right.
they stay on the sidelines, and also with the exception of about 4 or 5 bills that they vetoed last year, they'll pass most legislation. The Hogan administration accepts and respects the will of the legislature. So I think they like to see kind of a hands-off approach, which is different, what I've learned, than what the O'Malley administration did, which is they would take opinions on everything, right? So if you walked into a legislature as a Republican with an idea and the O'Malley administration opposed, well, the story was kind of written, right?
Right.
So
Now I owe you another apology because
Sure.
being the cynical newspaper person I am, when you filed, I was like, oh great, another pro-business Republican. Here you go. We've seen these guys come and go. But then I got to know you and got to see you speak, and you're very passionate about that. And somehow, your viewpoints on that made sense to me, and I was able to embrace what you were saying in terms of pro-business. You point out a lot that how business people are affected, especially with the comparisons with Delaware, and you did it in an articulate way that I hadn't really heard before. So I think that helped drive your election.
it was the reason why I was elected.
Yeah.
And it was the reason why I ran. When people understood who I was as a businessman, this is the same story that Larry Hogan told.
Right.
He ran a much different, much larger business than mine.
Right.
But he was a developer, Montgomery County, and for me, we were affected by the state of Maryland in a way that very few companies can come back from. When the state points their finger at you and they're able to use the full weight of one of their departments, and in this case, the Department of Labor Licensing and Regulation, we won.
Right.
But it changes you, when you feel that. And so I was upset. I mean, mad. And the outlet for me was, here's an opening. So the long story short being that we had 2 sitting delegates that ran for higher office, and an open seat came about. And I ran on a business platform, and I'll tell you that when I was in Annapolis in 2012 when we made law change, I did not see hardly anyone that had a pure business background. I mean, there are people that are in business,
Right.
but not people that are 42 years old like I was
Right.
at the time.
With several employees.
Having lived a life in the
payroll.
private sector,
Yeah.
and learning how to survive during tough economic times, take advantage of good economic times, seeing opportunity. That perspective, if I told you that there were a handful of legislators with that background, that should tell you something, because that means that perspective wasn't being served. And what a business person does when they go into Annapolis, and I'll tell you because it's what I've done, is you see and can anticipate what a bill is going to look like and how it's going to impact the business community. And so when you can sit down with the Democrats or even Republicans that don't have a business background and say, hey, wait a minute, let me tell you what this is going to do.
Right.
We killed some bills last year because of that perspective. And I say kill respectfully. Some of these bills that go through our committee are very,
Right.
very tough, and it shouldn't be a hard sell, but it is easier when you say, here's who I am. We've got 30 employees, and we serve a rural market, and here's how this is going to impact us. And you do it the right way. You don't howl at the moon.
Which is your committee again?
Economic Matters.
Okay.
So we're
Which
on
is
the
a great committee.
on the business
Everything
committee.
in the state goes through that committee.
Well, very important bills.
Yeah.
We're going to hear some bills this year that will be of some interest. Whether they pass or not is a different story. But it's the right committee. If I was in health and government operations.
Right.
I'd be a great elected official.
Right.
But Addie Eckhart is the expert on healthcare, so
Right.
it would take me at least a couple years in a committee like that to get up to speed. This one I was able to.
No, this fits
run.
who you are, so
Absolutely.
that's good.
The
Yeah.
Speaker makes full decisions on this, by the way, and Speaker Bush did me a tremendous service by allowing me to serve in that capacity.
Now, you get up there as a young Republican. Are all the Democrats that run Annapolis, are they really that evil?
No. No.
Did you think they were on your way up there?
Greg, you're in the business. I'll make one quip here that with things I read in the newspaper, things I see on TV, don't often reflect the tenor of what is happening when you're sitting on the floor, when you're sitting in your office with other elected officials who are in the other party. It's not quite true at all. My fellow delegate, Johnny Mounts from the north of the district, and I sat together, but we did not sit with the East
You guys are on the other side of the room, which is bizarre.
We were,
You've got
basically
Mary Beth and Carl and Cherie all right there, and then you guys are on the other side.
They put Johnny and I in the Montgomery County delegation.
Right.
Now, I'll tell you that Johnny and I sit and we listen. We hear very interesting things, but I sit next to.
Which is a strong Democratic delegation.
So there's a lot of talk,
Yeah.
and you hear what you hear. I sat next to, and hopefully we'll sit next to next year, a delegate, Mark Corman from Montgomery County.
Yeah.
And he and I had lengthy conversations, just sharing perspective. Is there common ground? Bills would come up for a vote, and I'd vote no, and he'd vote yes.
Right.
It'd be one thing. Well, what were you thinking? So you learn very quickly that we have principles. I mean, people elect us based on our background, and are we going to reflect the values of our district? So someone from Montgomery County necessarily is going to understand why I'm not going to support certain things, and vice versa. Right. This is the beauty of being a businessman. Is that politics was never in my offering up until recently, but what I'm bringing is the ability to negotiate, the ability to listen, develop compromise, but to also, I'm doing this for a reason and somewhat on a mission. I'd like to see solutions. So I have a different way of going about that.
Right. So. Governor's cancer's gone.
We are lucky to have Larry Hogan come back to health. When I was running for office, Greg, I would have door knocking experiences. In fact, I can think of one specifically where they said, after I did my elevator speech, they said, Chris, you've got my vote, but it's not going to matter unless we get a Republican governor in office.
Right.
A lot of people on the Eastern Shore, even independents and Democrats who would have voted for Larry Hogan, saw him as a break from the real problems that Maryland faced politically, how we were ignored, frankly, by Annapolis for so many years. And when things did come down, it came down with the attitude of on high. So, Larry Hogan truly campaigned on the Eastern Shore, said that we're not going to forget you on the Eastern Shore. So when you see his first months where he's delivering on those campaign promises, and then you see the news that he's going to have to suffer a very difficult fight, difficult cancer battle.
Yeah.
Who is this man? How is he going to get through it? And a lot of people would ask me not just, hey, how's Larry doing? It would be, how's Larry doing?
Right.
Now, they expected me to have some background knowledge on this, and I do not, other than to say to you that people were very concerned.
Right.
That we had done such a great thing in Maryland to elect a Republican who seemed like a good bipartisan and has been a good bipartisan voice in Annapolis. And the point I'll share with you is that now that he's gotten through this cancer, that for now he's 100% free of the cancer, I'm happy.
Right.
And many people in the district are very happy to see that as well.
Well, it's hard to figure out what kind of style he has because he gets elected, he goes right into session, so you have all that stuff, and then he gets sick. Yeah. So during a downtime, he's sick, and you don't know if he would be more aggressive about stuff or not. So I'm curious as to what kind of governor we're going to have now going forward.
You're going to have a businessman
Yeah.
as a governor, and he's going to look at numbers. He's going to see budgets the same way that I see those budgets. You either have the money or you don't. And while we have a credit card, and what I mean to say to you is that there are ways that the state can spend money that they don't have.
Right.
Governor Hogan will likely continue down the path he went last year, which is to take some measures that really cut government, minimize bureaucracy.
Bridge tolls, everyone cites that as a great thing.
It is, but you know, the governor from Maryland is almost unique throughout the country. He or she has tremendous power over the budget. In other words, when the governor presents his budget, me as a legislator, in fact all of us, the only thing we can do to that budget is cut it.
Right.
We can't add anything to it. So the governor can make strong political statements about financing through his budget. You know, we had a revision in 2015 that added, and I say added, $300 million to their what they thought they were going to receive as a state, which is a great thing. The problem when I say added is it just minimized the loss, right? So the structural deficit is now $280 million less than what it was going to be. The frustration is I hear many of our elected officials from Annapolis talking about how many ways we can spend that $280 million. The problem with that, Greg, is that you've got a pension liability that's only funded to 68% right now. We have general fund dollars being spent on debt service, and that if that's not fixed, and by 2025 we could be spending $600 million per year on debt service. And we do need to fix our structural deficit. So back to what you might expect from Larry Hogan, our governor, is that he will continue to fight for fiscal pragmatic principles that he ran on. That'll create some debate. So I think our governor is going to stand, and we will thank him many times over down the road for what he's going to be doing now.
What are you looking to accomplish in this coming session in January?
Right. So, you know, for me, education, and it's going to be different. I could talk at length about the...
Your wife's a public school teacher?
She is.
Taught my kid. She's a great teacher.
I've learned so much from
Way too
Jill.
much homework, but yes. According to my daughter.
Well, Greg, I know that because I see her grading at nighttime.
Mrs. Adams, oh.
Jill has been, you know, I'm glad you brought her up.
Yeah.
She's been a true gift to me. When I decided to do this, she had no idea either how much
She's got
time.
focus.
Yes.
She's a focused person.
Yeah. So she's been very supportive, and I've been gone from home quite a bit. So, you know, education is very important to me. I also have 3 kids in public education. They're at Mardella Middle and High School, and I respect our public education system. Sat down with Dr. Frederickson a couple days ago, and so I'll have some plans and bills that I'll put in for education. It's the best I can tell you now.
Good.
I have a business background, so you can expect action on the labor front and me trying to help deregulate and ease some pressure on the employers in our state generally. But it's my second year. I've got a 4-year term, and maybe more down the road. January is going to be a good time to answer that question.
What's the biggest surprise since you got up there?
The biggest surprise has been I would say just how easy it's been to work with other people in the Democrat Party.
Right.
So we have some differences. We're going to have some differences on this bill with the sprinkler bill. But
people up there mostly mean well.
I think so. And when you're an average citizen who, and again, I'll go back, Greg, to what we see on television, and but when the rubber meets the road, when there's work to be done, know that whether you're Republican or Democrat, we all are fighting for our principles, and generally our nose is pointed in the same direction. So, and that is for a better Maryland, and that's not that should be surprising, but it's a pleasant observation that you can't have that perspective until you're actually there working for the people in Annapolis.
How can people reach you?
They can reach me by my cell phone.
You're doing the Carl Anderson and call my cell phone thing?
Well, it hits most of my cards. But let me tell you, rarely do people call me unless there's something very important.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when I give you the 443-359-0911 number, just know that that's available to anybody anytime.
All right.
But I found that to be very good. People will call.
And we'll put that up on the screen.
Absolutely, please do. And you know, my email is christopher.adams@house.state.md.us. I hired the best legislative assistant in Annapolis.
She's good.
Betsy Hamilton.
Yes.
And I can turn things around very quickly. Questions that would take me a week to answer. She's been in the legislature for 11, 12 years. and she will have solved something before she
Yeah.
even calls me. So she is my office. I think you'll find that I've, as a business guy, have been lucky and have, I'm running a lean business right now.
Good.
There in Annapolis.
He's Chris Adams. He's our delegate, Western Wicomico, Dorchester, Caroline?
Caroline, Dorchester,
It's in Talbot.
Wicomico.
And they all said that no one from Wicomico could ever win that district, so congratulations on that.
It means a lot to me to have gotten that win.
And keep doing a good job up there.
Thanks, Greg.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.